The sound of pages turning means it's time for another episode from the Meredith Library Podcast Studio, bringing you the library's latest news, information, and fun.
Good afternoon, Matthew.
Good afternoon, Anna.
And good afternoon, everyone. We are here with episode 24 of the Check It Out podcast at the Meredith Public Library. And Matthew, what do we have on the docket for today?
We have a special guest with us. We have Scott Powell, chair of the Meredith Conservation Commission. Welcome, Scott.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. And you are going to be talking about the Page Pond expansion project.
That's correct. We're working on adding an additional almost 40 acres to the existing Page Pond Town Forest in Meredith.
And how many acres is it as of now?
Right now, it's about 765 acres. It's one of our largest conservation areas in town.
Yes, and for people who are not familiar with it, I want to explain how they get there so they can check it out themselves.
All right. There are actually 3 trailheads. The smallest one is on Blueberry Lane. The largest and probably most used trailhead is on Barnard Ridge Road, which is right off of Meredith Neck Road.
And that's not the one from Moulton Farm, right?
Correct. That's the third one.
All right.
And that one is also very highly used. It's right at the end of Quarry Road. You just drive right past Moulton Farm, keep going till the road ends, and there's a parking area there. And both of those have kiosks with trail maps on them.
I know that's the one I've been to, the one down the street from Moulton Farm. And I thought there was a lot of parking there. How does that relate to the parking at the other two?
The one on Barnard Ridge Road is larger, probably has an additional 10 or 12 parking spaces, where Blueberry Hill only has room for 3 or 4 cars.
But that's the secret one, like if you're in with the town and you know all the cool spots and you can be like, hey, everyone goes here, but check out Blueberry Hill. Yeah,
I know a shortcut, the neatest way to get to the wetlands, which is a really interesting part of the property.
Well, yes, I was going to say, why don't you tell us about some of the features of the property as it stands, and then about the additional acreage and why that's being added.
All right. I would say the highlight of the property, which most people really like to see, is the historic mill dam. It's a very old and very large mill dam that used to be a sawmill. And we believe that wood sawn there was used to build many of the houses and barns around Meredith back in the 1800s. We've been working on restoring it. It needed a fair amount of work done, and there's still more to be done. But it's right in the center of the property, easily accessed from all the trailheads, and it's just a fascinating thing to see.
You realize how big it is. As you get closer to it, it's like, wow, this is taller than you realize from the distance.
Yeah, when you approach it, as it pops out of the woods, it just kind of blows your mind away. How big it is and how it was made back that long ago without equipment.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I remember the beaver dam is in there as well. I remember seeing that. It's kind of amazing. That's
another really neat feature. That's on the Yellow Trail. And the trail actually has a boardwalk that goes right beside the dam. And you're there, 2 feet away from this huge beaver dam. You look out over the pond and see the lodge. Just a really great way to experience what good engineers beavers are and what they can do.
Must be a really cool place for field trips for kids as well, maybe, to go and check out authentic beaver dam.
It is. In fact, the school does outdoor classrooms there during the school year, and the kids can go out and look at all the features on the property. So another really interesting feature of the property is right on Barnard Ridge Road at that trailhead. There's some very large fields, and they consist of some of the best agricultural land in the state. And we've been working for 7 or 8 years now to remove the invasive species that took over the field. And we're trying to bring that back so that at least part of it can be farmed again. In the state it's in now, it's got great wildflowers and wild plants to go out and look at, birds and butterflies. Really use it a lot. So it's a great place to park there and take your dogs for a walk and see some of the wild fields that we have here.
As long as you clean up your dog poop.
Absolutely. We always ask people to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It sounds like a really beautiful piece of land. And you said there's also a lot of wetlands, right, in the area. And wetlands, I think, are so cool. They're really biodiverse, right? And really important features. I think you have something in this handout here about how it filters water, and when there's a lot of rain, wetlands help with absorbing like the rain and not causing flooding, right? And things like that. So they're really important environmental features.
Right. The attributes of wetlands are really valuable to the environment and to wildlife. And the Page Brook wetland is actually the largest prime wetland in Meredith. The Page Pond Town Forest is protecting a lot of that wetlands, which provides great habitat for animals. And as you mentioned, when you get floods, those beaver dams actually increase the size of the ponds and they can absorb much more of those heavy rain events that we're getting and prevent flooding from going downstream. So they're important for the wildlife and they're important for humans that live on the land.
So tell us then about the expansion part. How did this come about? Is it private property that is abutting the town forest? How does all that work?
There's a really neat tract of land. It abuts the southern part of the existing Page Pond Town Forest. And it's 40 acres that's right along Page Brook. And about 15 of the acres are wetlands. And so if we can protect that, we'll have the entire west side of Page Brook all conserved that will never be developed by houses. So we're trying to raise about $350,000 to purchase that. We've already received 2 grants, a Moose Plate grant and a U.S. Forest Service grant. So we have more than half of our funds already in place. And
that's wonderful.
We're hoping to raise the rest so we can close on it come late winter or early spring.
Okay, and how does that work? How can people contribute or donate to the cause?
The easiest way is to just make a contribution to the town of Meredith and put on that it's for the Page Pond expansion. And that will go directly to the Conservation Commission for adding to the funds for the purchasing the land.
So can people actually just bring a check to town hall?
Sure, they can do that. Yep, that's the easiest way.
That's pretty easy.
You can also mail it in as well. That works too. Contributions are tax deductible.
Always good. We like to hear that.
I'm looking at the map that you provided here, and it seems like there might possibly be a new trailhead that would be at the bottom of the southern bit of the new addition.
That's correct. This new addition is right off Meredith Neck Road. So the plan is to have an additional trailhead there so that people who live out in Meredith Neck will have quick and easy access. And that trail will connect into the entire trail network, which is some 15 miles of trails on the property. We will be careful to keep the trail away from the wetlands and out of valuable habitat, but the plan is to have a spur trail that goes down because it is an absolutely beautiful wetland that people need to see. It's fabulous.
And how many people visit this particular location, say, every weekend, on an average weekend?
Boy, it's hard to tell. We don't have any way to actually measure that.
Okay.
But certainly in the summer, anytime you go by on a nice day, you're going to see half a dozen cars in each of the major trailheads. So It gets a lot of use. The mornings, there's a lot of people out with dogs, walking their dogs, and people go out birding. There are hunters that use the property also. So it gets a lot of use year round. Skiing, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, all winter, the trails are open and available for everyone.
As the chair of the Conservation Commission, what other properties are you overseeing and what else are you doing with those properties?
Well, that's a good question. We have some 2,000 acres of land that we steward, and we have to monitor those properties every year to make sure they're being properly taken care of. 2 other properties have hiking trails on them. There's one right downtown Meredith. It's called Community Forest, and it's right up on Geneseo Road with a large parking area, and that's nice, easy terrain for walking. And then the third property is the Hamlin Town Forest, which is up in the Chemung area, and that's our largest forest. There's actually part of the Eames property abuts it, and there are trails on that as well as on something called the Smythe Easement up on Arbutus Hill. So there's almost 20 miles of trails up there. They're also open year-round and great for skiing and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing in the winter.
Yes, that's amazing. And how about the Wakawan Community Highlands? Is that one of them as well, or is that one administered by a different organization?
That one is administered by Meredith Parks and Recreation. And there are nice trails in there also. They go right down to the Old Town Reservoir, a beautiful little pond, and they've got some great trails that go all around that property as well. Another great place to explore.
So how does the town feel about this project that you have going on?
The town has been very supportive. We have a Facebook page where we post pretty much every week around the year. And there's almost 1,000 people that follow our Facebook page. So Yes, the town is very supportive of all our properties.
That's awesome. And I bet our podcast will be right on that Facebook page for everybody to listen to.
It certainly will be. Absolutely.
Well, that's awesome. And you said that the fundraising is going well. So you're looking to complete fundraising by around January 2025?
Yes, we'd like to have all the funds in place by the end of January. The Forest Service funds are available in March, so we would like to have all the funds in place when those become available so we can close certainly late March or in April at the latest.
So on the schedule here, I'm seeing that you're hoping by next fall that public access and the trails will be defined and constructed and people can start visiting the super gorgeous wetland and enjoying the land.
That's correct. Yep. So assuming that we close in April, as we hope to, we will spend the summer surveying the land, working with the forester, working with wetland scientists and environmentalists to decide where the best place is to put a new trailhead and the trails to connect into the existing trails. And then we have a great trail crew that over the summer will create that trail. We'll build a parking space there and a kiosk with trail signs and maps. So by late fall, we should be all set to go.
And a lot of that work, I'm assuming, is done by volunteers. Is that true? And I bet they are awesome.
You're right on both counts. They are all volunteers and they are an awesome crew. We have something called the Tuesday Trail Crew. And there's a group that comes out every Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock. We have anywhere from 4 or 5 up to a dozen volunteers that come out. And we go to a different property every week, whether it's Hamlin or Page Pond or Community Forest, wherever needs work. They're there correcting problems with erosion, brushing back tree limbs that grow into the trail or trees that blow down across it, removing them. They're just a fantastic team.
Do you have any tips on how, if, the Meredith residents are going to use the trails, the best ways to interact with the trails and keep them as pristine and healthy as possible?
That's a great point. Yeah, the most important thing is to stay on the trail. There are some sensitive areas where if you just take a few steps off the trail, you can crush some sensitive or fragile plants. You can also disturb animals that are trying to nest off the trail. So please stay on the trails. That's the best advice. They are open year round. If it's muddy, you may want to stay away because that can be hard on the trails walking through the mud. I will say winter is a great time to go out. It's usually quiet and you can see a lot of neat animal tracks. It's in the winter that you go out and you realize how much wildlife is out there. When you see deer tracks and turkey tracks in the snow and beavers and otters, it's fascinating. You really learn what goes on in our forests if you take a trip out there in the winter.
I love going out in the winter. Everything is so quiet. It's so peaceful. And I'm guessing leave it the way that you found it, right? Not picking up any little souvenirs. If you see a cool mushroom off on the side, just look at it. Oh, cool mushroom, move along. And if you drop any food, the idea, even if it's like an orange peel and technically it can compost, you should still pick that up, right?
That's absolutely correct. Yes, you should. And, certainly never pick the flowers. Leave them for somebody else to come along. If you see an edible mushroom, that's okay to take that. People do pick mushrooms and they do a lot of foraging out there. Blueberries are the same way. So feel free to do that. But things like pretty flowers and plants, you should leave those.
Okay, but be careful with the mushrooms.
Yes, certainly know what you're doing if you're picking mushrooms.
Yes, we have lots of books here at the library about mushroom mycology, all that stuff. So
True.
We also do guided tours. The commission will have guided tours year round. Last year we did a snowshoe tour up in Hamlin, and this year we're going to do one in Page Pond. So keep your eye on our Facebook page. We'll typically do that late February, early March when there's the best chance to have good snow cover. So that's a chance to go out with a guided tour and know that you'll find your way around the interesting parts of the forest and not get lost. And we've also done fungus walks in the past with an expert who does know the mushrooms and can come out and talk about what the different mushrooms are and which ones are safe to eat.
So we talked about the fundraising for the project. Does the town of Meredith also put money into either acquiring the lands or maintaining them? How does that part work?
Yes, the town is very generous. They give us an annual operating budget, which we use to pay for our ongoing expenses. The town citizens have also passed a warrant article that sends the first $50,000 of what's called land change use taxes. When someone takes land out of current use, they have to pay a tax on that. And that goes to the conservation fund in town, which is used to conserve additional land. And we have funds in that we will be using for this new purchase at Page Pond.
And is there anything today that we didn't ask you about that you would like to share with us about the commission, the Page Pond project, or any of the other lands that you are overseeing?
No, I think we've covered everything. I can just add that the commission does have public meetings the first Thursday of every month. We meet at 7:00 in the community center, and the public is welcome. We're always glad to have more people come and tell us their thoughts on what's going on around the town. And we're always interested in having more people come and support our Tuesday trail cruise too. So stop by any meeting and say hello. We'd be glad to meet you.
All right. Well, to close out the episode, usually I have like a question of the day that I ask at the end of every episode. So I have come up with one in my head as we've been talking. If you could be a tree, what kind of tree would you be and why? Or what kind of tree do you feel like speaks to you?
Oh boy. I don't know. I think I'd be a beech tree.
Ooh, that's very New Hampshire.
It is. It's very New Hampshire. They're majestic trees. They grow fairly slowly, but they grow very large. And a mature beech tree is a sight to behold. You'll often see them with bear claws in them because the bears will climb up them. They have great food. They love the beech nuts. So it's an important food source for bears and many other animals that eat the nuts as well. And they're just a really majestic, fabulous tree.
What about you, Matthew?
I'm going to go with an evergreen because, of course, it could be a Christmas tree. And you can count on it all year round. And it's very, we'll say, solid and non-deciduous, obviously. So they don't change. You know that that's what you're getting every time.
Consistent.
Oh, thank you. That's what I'm going with. How about you, Anna?
I would be a quaking aspen because I like to dance.
That's good.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, Scott, it was awesome having you here today to talk about this like really important project. And again, you can donate to this project by sending in a check or dropping a check off at Town Hall to the order of the Page Pond expansion.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott. And we'll welcome you back anytime you want to come and tell us what's going on with the Conservation Commission and any of our wonderful resources here in town.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here with you both.
All right, Matthew, that wraps up another episode.
And it was wonderful as always, Anna. We'll look forward to talking to you soon again and with everyone else out there as well.
All right, bye.
Bye. Sounds like we're at the end of another chapter. Podcast music titled Daytime TV Theme by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0. Podcast copyright 2024. Meredith Library Podcast Studio.